And you remember, we're up against the Chinese. The Chinese work-life balance consists of 996, which is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. By the way, the Chinese have clarified that this is illegal. However, they all do it. That's who you're competing against.
Wow, the 996 culture in China is extreme. 12-hour workdays, 6 days a week. It really makes you think, are we as a society pushing ourselves enough, or are we getting too comfortable? This is the kind of relentless drive that's shaping global AI competition.
They're really doing something more different than I thought. They're not pursuing crazy AGI strategies, partly because of the hardware limitations that you've put in place, but partly because the depth of their capital markets don't exist. They can't raise, based on a wing and a prayer, $100 million or RMB equivalent to build the data centers. They just can't do it. And so the result is they're very focused on taking AI and applying it to everything. And so the concern I have is that while we're pursuing AGI, which is incredibly interesting and we should talk about, and all of us will be affected by this, we better also be competing with the Chinese in day-to-day stuff.
Right.
Consumer apps, this is something you understand very well, Chamath. Consumer apps, robots, and so forth and so on. I saw all the Shanghai robotics companies, and these guys are attempting to do in robots what they've successfully done with electric vehicles. Right, and their work ethic's incredible. They're well funded. It's not the crazy valuations that we have in America.
Right.
They can't raise the capital, but they can win across that. The other thing the Chinese are doing, and I want to emphasize this as a major geopolitical issue, is that my own background is open source. In the audience, you all know open source means open code. Open weights means open training data. China is competing with open weights and open training data, and the US is largely and majority focused on closed weights, closed data. That means that the majority of the world, think of it as the Belt and Road Initiative, are going to use Chinese models and not American models. Now, I happen to think the West and democracies are correct, and I'd much rather have the proliferation of large language models and that learning be done based on Western values.
Eric.
Here's the fascinating part. While China is laser-focused on applying AI everywhere, they're not chasing AGI like we are. But Eric highlights a bigger picture. It's not just about futuristic intelligence, it's about real-world execution and winning today. And that brings us to the question, what role does America play in all of this? Let's hear his perspective next.
How do you view the world? Like, what is the role of America? What is your role as a capitalist, as a technologist, as like a statesman?
I want America to win. Right. I am here because the American dream, the people who invested in me, in my case Berkeley and so forth, people took a chance on me. I want the next generation to have that. I also want you all to remember, I was just in as part of the World War II surrender ceremony in Honolulu, and they talked about fighting tyranny, right? We forget that our ancestors or great-grandparents or whatever fought the Great War to keep liberalism and democracy alive. I want us to do that. How do we do that as Americans? We use our strengths. What are our strengths? We're chaotic, confusing, loud, but we're clever. We allocate capital smartly. We have very deep financial markets. We have this enormous industrial base of universities and entrepreneurs which are represented here. We should celebrate this. We should stoke it. We should make it go faster and faster. I spent lots of time in Europe because of the Ukraine stuff. They are so envious of us. When you're in Asia, they are envious of us. Don't screw it up, guys.
Eric's vision is clear. He wants America to lead. Not just in technology, but in freedom, democracy, and opportunity. He reminds us that our strengths are messy, loud, and chaotic, yet incredibly powerful when harnessed. But there's a hidden challenge, he points out next, a problem even bigger than AI itself. Let's see what that is.
One metric of the success of a society is its ability to reproduce. And so I think this is a legitimate concern of the West. It's much worse in Asia. The Chinese number is about 1.0 for two parents. In Korea, it's now down to 0.78 for two. So it's really important to recognize that we as humans are collectively choosing to depopulate. And the numbers are staggering, right? And imagine a situation where instead of having growth, you have shrinkage. And furthermore, they're getting older. And so as a business, all of a sudden, your revenue is declining, and there's nothing you can do because you can't innovate with fewer and fewer customers. So if you just put it in a business context, ignoring the moral issues, which are all very real, it's just bad, right? So we have to solve that problem. I happen to be in favor broadly of immigration because I think immigration helps us solve that problem, but as a global mechanism, we have to address that. In any case, from my perspective, you're going to have these issues, but America is organized around the concept of American exceptionalism. And as long as we understand that the way we make progress is we invest in the right people, in the right businesses, we have a strong capital market, we invest in the infrastructure that they need, we'll be fine. That is my actual opinion.
This is where it gets even more intriguing. Beyond demographics and societal challenges, Eric dives back into AI, the way humans and machines interact, the potential for AGI, and how the next wave of technology will reshape our work and lives. Let's hear his thoughts in the next clip.
With you on this AGI thing, because there's this group which I call the San Francisco narrative, because they all live in San Francisco, and their narrative goes something like this. Today we're doing agents. The agentic revolution will change businesses, which I agree with. That what happens is the systems will become recursively self-intelligent. With recursive self-improvement, as it's called, if you have a scale-free problem, and a scale-free problem, for example, is programming or math, where you can just keep doing it, you get these enormous fast gains if you buy enough hardware, do enough software, so forth and so on. That is still underway. The collective of that says that in the next 3-ish years, they believe that we will get forms of superintelligence. And the way they define it is basically a savant, a chemist savant, a physics savant, a mathematician savant. I don't agree with the 3 years, but I do agree that it'll be maybe 6 or 7 years.
But if it's a savant in a particular area, is that general intelligence?
It's not general intelligence yet. General intelligence is when it can set its own objective function.
Right.
And
there's no evidence of that.
There's no evidence right now of the ability to set your own objective function. The thinking, and I'm writing a paper on this, so I've been studying it, is the technical problem is non-stationarity of mathematical proofs. And what you're doing is you're trying to solve against objective function, but the objective function keeps changing, which is how humans operate. Your goal changes every day, whereas computers have trouble with that. As a math problem, we don't have an algorithm yet for LLMs that can do that. People are working on it. And the test will be, can you basically, using the information available in 1902, can you derive the same thing that Einstein did with special relativity followed by general relativity? We cannot do that today. And most people believe that the way this will be solved is through analogy. So the theory of great geniuses is that they understand one area extremely well, and they're so brilliant, the later man can then take their ideas and apply it to a completely different domain. If we can solve that problem, then I think it's over. Then we get to AGI, and then it's a whole different world.
Eric paints a fascinating picture. AI won't fully replace humans, but it will work with us, amplify our capabilities, and challenge us to think differently. The real question is, when will machines gain true independence and creativity? Let's hear how he sees the future in the final clip.
I think one of the reasons why it's hard to replace a human, and J.K. and I debate this, is that humans are end-to-end. We can do the whole job. You have sort of a complete understanding. You can pivot very easily. AI, at least as we know it today, is not end-to-end. It has to be prompted. You get an answer. That answer has to be validated. Then you have to ask a new question because it never gives you exactly what you want. You have to apply more context. You have to go through an iterative loop. Finally, you get to an answer that has business value. The way biology puts it is that AI is not end-to-end. It's middle to middle. Humans are end-to-end. And so as a result of that, instead of AI replacing all of us, AI will be very synergistic with humans because we can define the objective function, we do the prompting, and we work with it to iterate, and it does a lot of the work in the middle. That seems to me like a very optimistic, less doomeristic take on it.
What you just said is exactly what's going to happen for the next few years. That each of us will have assistants, which on our command and our prompting will be incredibly helpful to whatever problem we have. Personal, you have people who are using these things for relationship advice, for talking to their kids. I mean, it's all crazy stuff. But the fact of the matter is, that's it. To me, the real question is, when does it cross over to having its own volition, its own ability to seek information and solve new problems? That's a different animal.
But have we seen any evidence of recursive self-improvement yet?
Not yet. I've funded a number of startups which claim to be close to it. But of course, these are startups, and you never know. Which tells me it's 5-10 years
How do you think Google's doing on this front?
Well, I'm not at Google anymore. Yep. Every issue of Gemini is top of the leaderboard. So 2.5 just overcame everybody, and I'm sure there's another one coming. Demis is working really hard on this question about scientific discovery. So that is a path to getting to AGI.
Finally, Eric brings it all together with AI and humans. AI won't replace us. It'll amplify us, complement us, and push us to define new objectives. But the ultimate frontier is AGI, where machines might one day think independently. We're on the edge of something revolutionary. If you found this insightful, make sure to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into technology, AI, and the future. You won't want to miss what's coming next.